Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to another Hyper Aggro video. This one's gonna be fast because I just need to finish talking about this deck, and then I'm done, because after this there's literally nothing else to talk about. Aggro's final form. This is the list that I am running for tournaments, I'm running online, running for everything. And I feel as if this is at the very least closing in on the final list for where Hyper Aggro is going to be, with the only differences being some tweaks to tech cards as well as ratios, right? Like, I don't know if 4 brooms and 1 Chernobog's followers is good or not, basically. Like, should it be 3 and 3? Or you get the idea. Like, we're no longer at the point where it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know if this card is good or that card. No. All of these cards have been proven to be useful into all or at least most matchups. um, I can literally go through the list of each card and explain when you play this card versus other cards. In fact, we're going to do that. So Daisy Duck, Donald State, Baloo, Donald Duck, Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, The Boss is on a Roll, and Amethyst Chromacon are effectively the core of the deck. These are the cards that really tie the deck together and make it so that you can win pretty consistently. Lilo and Maleficent provide a similar function. Turn 2, you want to be dropping out 2 1-drops with 2 lore. So these are a bunch of 1-drops with 2 lore. In fact, they are all the 1-drops with 2 lore that you can be running, which is why Amber is a must-have inclusion, because it's one of the only colors with 2 1-drops with 2 lore. So you drop these 2 out turn 2 ideally, because you always want to be dropping out Daisy Duck turn 1, because she can survive an early Glimmer being played, aka character, and she can also start questing you to 2. Okay, then Chernobog's followers. Just in here for some more consistency on dropping 2 characters on turn 2. I only have a one of in the deck because their cycling, aka the get rid of them to draw a card, is too slow. So it doesn't matter into most matchups, and their stat line is awful if you're forced to drop one turn 1, which does happen occasionally, which is why I went down Chernobogs and went up more brooms, because Broom is just a strictly better Chernobogs in this case, with the 1-2 stat line letting you survive combat against any other 1-2 stat line and letting you quest for free, basically. And then its cycling is also really good late game when you're just trying to find your lore from hand cards, where you're able to just play out Broom and then play out another 1-drop, and now you have a threat on the board, and you can cycle the Broom if they have you hard locked on board, so you can keep drawing towards your lore. Pascal is here for you know, it's evasive. It's sort of similar idea to Daisy Duck, where I'm not like too mad if I'm forced to drop a Pascal turn 1, especially if I know I'm faced up against a mid-range opponent, because Pascal can start questing me for a lot of lore really quickly. The problem is that like any green tempo or mid-rangey deck typically runs Pegasus or Sir Hiss, but that's neither here nor there. Then Simba is here to make it so that your turn 2 play can be just drop Simba and quest with your 1-drop, or it is just play Simba, don't exert him, and don't quest with your 1-drop for the mid-range matchup, so you can build up a more consistent wall to protect your 1-drops, because mid-range can struggle with actually getting through your bodyguards once you got them set up. like it's definitely your hardest matchup, but there are ways around it now, but we're gonna get to those. Baloo is just a must-have inclusion in my mind, especially against Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Steel, or sorry, Sapphire Steel. In fact, most of the like control decks or whatever, because that means turn three, you already have both a body to protect your one drops and a lore generator for if he dies, where the only way they can get around him is if they either use an effect that just puts him into the inkwell or bounces him back to hand, etc. Donald Duck, similar idea to Baloo. He is lore from hand if you have another character established, which you should have by turn three, and if not, you're probably gonna lose regardless. Madame Mim Fox is a tech card. She is in here for the mid-range matchup, where it's like, okay, so now with Madame Mim, turn four, I can quest with one of my one drop two lures, play Madame Mim, bounce them back to hand, play them out again, and just have my one drop two lures ready to go for the next turn. Merlin Crab, same idea to Madame Mim. Hilariously, Merlin Crab can help. There's only one of because he helps very situationally, and you don't need him like ever. But when you do need him, what you can do is, oh, they have a 3 health Diablo, and you just so happen to have a Pascal on the board. Okay, +3, and then knock out the Diablo. Like, like that's one of the only situations I thought of that I would ever use Crab, but there's definitely a use case for Crab in here, especially with Baloo, and I'm pretty sure Crab helps in the mirror match, where if you have a Baloo out or a Daisy Duck and they have a Baloo and a Daisy Duck out, all of a sudden you now have a potential way to break through their Baloo and start beating on their Daisy. Merlin Goat is pretty obvious. He's the goat. He literally cannot be played around for his lore generating effect. You play him, you gain one lore. They make him leave in any way, so that includes going to the inkwell, being bounced back to your hand, being banished, being being sent to the shadow realm from whence he will never recover. He will still give you another lore. So he is 2 lore from hand. Befuddle, same purpose of Simba. Turn 2, what you can do is you can go one drop Befuddle to bounce back one of their one drops. This is good into the mid range matchups because that slows down their tempo and continues building your tempo. Because you really need to think of this deck as the fastest tempo deck. Like, that's a good way of thinking about it because you are out tempoing a tempo deck if you get an ideal curve with this deck, but the tempo deck obviously has more quality characters, so you just get rid of their quality character and you keep going. This is also good if they play an early Diablo. You definitely should be trying to remove that with Befuddle more often than not, especially if you have either Pascal or just one of your one drops out. You get the idea. Now, the boss is on a roll and also gathering knowledge and wisdom. Gathering knowledge and wisdom just is 2 ink for 2 lore. You know why. I know why. We all know why this card is running this deck. The boss is on a roll is the one no one is running, and I have no idea why. Because it is crazy. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put any number of them on the top or the bottom of your deck in any order, and gain 1 lore. So you're telling me when my hand is done being dumped and I just want to find my cards that say gain lore as you play them, I can just filter out my draws to be exactly that? Like, do you get it? Like, if you're at like the problem that's historically plagued hyper aggro is that you'll be at like 15, 14 lore and just not quite be able to get there. This lets you get there. This is so consistent where if the top five cards of your deck are just all character cards that are all gonna be wiped immediately regardless, unless it's one that gives you lore upon being dropped, you just pitch them to the bottom and problem solved. Now you're a lot more likely to get your Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, Merlin Goats, you get the idea. Then Amethyst Chromacon is just really good into just like grindy matchups. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I was gonna say mid range, but that seems. Oh yeah, mid range against like discard, tempo, and stuff like that. Amethyst Chromacon can be your engine to actually still keep getting characters because they don't actually often run the muses on tempo discard, which is great for you, but also a problem because they're running like Strength of a Raging Fire and whatnot. But it's fine. It's another mid range matchup. You just need to figure out how to deal with it. Like, if you can figure out the mid range matchups with this deck, you're going to be just winning your local championships because you eat up ramp like crazy, which is why I've cut the library a gift for Bell. And also, I forgot. Let's finish. The Sorcerer's Spellbook, 3 cost item, exert this and pay 1 ink, gain 1 lore. It's just a constant lore generator late game. Like it will help you so much. You don't have to worry about, you know, it dying or anything like that. Okay. Now, let's go to the Hyper Aggro deck so I can talk about the changes. Um, It's literally just I've cut the library a gift for Bell. If you still want to be running a location in the deck, theoretically, I haven't messed around enough with it yet, but theoretically, the Queen's Castle is actually the better option. I'm changing my tune on this one because I have not had a game where I'm like, oh wow, I'm so happy that I have the library a gift for Bell in hand. It has maybe at most drawn me 1 or 2 cards in like the span of 7 games, and then it's also generated maybe 1 or 2 lore, and it's like not that great. I would much rather be spending my 3 ink on bosses on a roll, sorcerer's spellbook, even a Madame Mim Fox, right? Like it's just, also, I need to figure out how to look at the DLC Vegas because the list I was looking at for the top 16 used to have Hyper Aggro. It doesn't have Hyper Aggro on it anymore. Regardless, it doesn't matter. But anyways, this is the list. This has always been the list. I have there's a long conversation that can be had for any individual card in this deck, and then these are the core cards. If these aren't cards you're running in your Hyper Aggro deck, I strongly implore you to run them because they are very important. But anyways, that is it. That's all. I should expect a more casual deck attack next time, which I should be doing honestly tomorrow. Like I have it all locked and loaded, but please hit subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I do hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!